Hello my dear friends, welcome. Do you need to control a discrete or digital element? However, you have already used all the available digital pins of the Arduino Uno board, so only the analog input pins are available. Could we use them as digital? More than 2 decades ago, when the Arduino development board did not yet exist, and before the development of digital electronic systems was open source, and before we had multiple tools and libraries available to choose from. To program microcontrollers like the Atmega 328P back then, our main and almost only source of information was the datasheet. And since our main programming language was not a high-level language like the C++ that we used in an Arduino sketch, but rather a low-level language like assembler, or assembly language, we were almost obliged to know in good detail the block diagram of the microcontroller, and know the function of each of these blocks or modules, including the blocks intended for input-output ports or interfaces of the chip, which you can see as port B, port C, and port D. Blocks that allowed us to know that all the pins corresponding to these ports, which are distributed throughout the microcontroller chip, and which are the same ones that extend towards the pins that we know well on our usual Arduino board, as digital pins, and as analog pins, in fact, can all be configured as digital, both input and output. So if it is your case, where you ran out of available digital pins on the Arduino Uno board for example, let's try the above mentioned. Let's place an LED diode between the analog 0 pins, and the analog 1, with the anode or positive pin in A0, and the cathode or negative pin in A1, and place a normally open button between the pins A2 and A4, directly connected to these pins. In our Arduino development environment, the Arduino IDE, and in a new sketch, we are going to declare inside the void setup method, the 4 digital pins that we will use for the button to control the lighting of the LED. With the pin mode method, we will set the analog pin 0, or pin A0, as a digital output, which corresponds to the anode, or positive pin of the LED diode. Write in the comments whether or not you previously knew that the analog pins of the Arduino could be configured as digital pins. We will set pin A1 as a digital output, which corresponds to the cathode, or negative pin of the LED diode. We will set pin A2 as a digital input, with its corresponding internal pull-up resistor, pin that corresponds to the first terminal of the button. And we will set pin A4 as a digital output, which corresponds to the second terminal of the button. We will set pin A1 in a logic low state, or 0 volts, since this will be the voltage reference of the LED diode. And we will set pin A4 in a low logic state, or 0 volts, since this will be the voltage reference of the push button. Inside the void loop method, we will place 2 conditional structures of the if type. In the first condition we will evaluate if the digital value of the pin A2 is in a high state or 5 volts, that is, if the button is not pressed. And in the second condition we will evaluate if the digital pin value of pin A2 is in a low state or 0 volts, that is, if the button is pressed. In the first action, in which the button is not pressed, we will turn off the LED by setting pin A0 in a low state. In the second action, in which the button is pressed, we will turn on the LED by setting pin A0 in a high state. In the Tools tab, we select the board we are using, in my case the Uno board. And we also select the port where the operating system recognizes our development board. We load this program to the board. And here we see the result, corroborating then that we can use the pins that we know as analog on the Arduino board, also as digital pins. A special greeting friends from Electronic Spot, and see you in the next video.